This is a non-commentated 10-star playthrough of Silent Hill 2 using the original Black Label PS2 version. For a commentated breakdown of the criteria for obtaining a 10-star ranking, please check out the timestamp in the description. Hope you enjoy the video.
you find the lady you're looking for? What's her name? Mary?
Jane.
And here we are, once again, getting another 10-star ranking in another Silent Hill game. This time, it's Silent Hill 2 on the chopping block, and getting a 10-star ranking in this game is actually a fair deal more straightforward than it was in the first game. We're working with a lot of more defined categories in this game compared to some of the categories in Silent Hill 1, which didn't have a set number so much as they followed a bizarre formula that you needed to meet a certain threshold in order to get the full score for your 10-star ranking. Something to go over is that your ranking is given to you in stars. 1 small star is equal to 1 point, while a large star is equal to 10 small stars, and therefore 10 points. I'll probably refer to the numbers as points going forward, just to keep it simple. One other thing that I'd like to draw attention to is actually game version. If you're playing on the console version, there is actually quite a bit of difference from playing on the PC version. Aside from the differing strats for certain sections of the game due to physics changes between the two versions, 2 categories in the PC version are considerably easier to meet, and I'll address those categories when I get to them. In fact, one of them is literally free, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Starting from the top is your action level and your riddle level. This awards 5 points each for being on hard for the action level and either hard or extra for the riddle level. It does not need to be extra, since that's purely determined by your game cycle. You can't select that directly. For this playthrough, I of course had hard, just because that's what my cycle was on, but if you think extra looks fancier, then by all means, do another playthrough so you can get that on your ranking screen. Otherwise, there's not too much to say about this. Compared to the first game, it actually does award points for you. In the first game, your difficulty level did not matter beyond. You couldn't play on easy since there was a penalty for that. But since you needed to do New Game Plus to get a 10-star ranking and your difficulty just automatically increased, you couldn't play on anything but hard for a true 10-star ranking anyway. For your riddle level, it does not really affect the difficulty of the game, so to speak, because the puzzles that are affected by this, almost all of them have set solutions. The one exception being the safe puzzle in Blue Creek Apartments, which does have a randomized combination every time you play the game. That one you just have to pay attention to. Otherwise, just make sure you have the correct solutions on hand for whatever difficulty you're on, and the easiest way to tell that, at least for me, is when you get to Blue Creek Apartments. If the safe combination you get has Roman numerals in the combination, then you're on hard riddle difficulty. If it has letters in the combination, then you are on extra riddle difficulty. Each category awards 5 points altogether, coming together for 10 points for a single large star. The next category, and this one actually does not affect anything, your ending. 0 points are awarded for your ending. One distinction about the ending is that if you have the dog or the rebirth ending, it will end up highlighted, but it is not necessary to get a specific special ending for this. If you so desire, you can get Leave, Maria, or In Water. The big problem there is that you have to fight the final bosses when going for those endings, and there is a whole bunch of potential for extra damage there that can easily invalidate your run. So if you're ambitious enough for that, by all means go for that. I just wanted to have a video showing the most pragmatic way to get a 10-star playthrough. Since I'm on the original PS2 version, dog ending is the only ending that I have for prematurely ending the game and skipping the final bosses. But if you're playing this on the Restless Dreams edition of the game, you can get the UFO ending, and there's only one opportunity cost to getting that ending, and it only really matters if you're very heavily routing your item collection. Now, the next ending related category that actually does affect your score is ending clear. You get 4 points for every ending that you have on your New Game Plus data. So you need to get In Water, you need to get Leave, you need to get Maria, you need to get Rebirth, and you need to get either the dog ending or the UFO ending. The game does track if you have a Born from a Wish clear, but this does not actually contribute to your score, so it is not necessary to get that. But again, if you want the most filled out looking ranking screen possible, and you'll have it anyway if you have UFO ending as an option, then you can get all those endings. But the main thing is you need 5 endings altogether to get the full score in this category, which is 20 points. Not too bad. Next up is your saves, which is one of the trickier categories to clear for first-time prospective players, because you've probably been used to being able to save at your leisure. You need to save under 3 times, so you can only save between 0 and 2 times. Go over that and you start losing points. If you can keep your saves that low, which I just used 2 saves for safety, and sadly this was not a single segment clear. I did screw up after Eddie's boss fight a couple times and had to reload the fight since I got myself killed because I was unclear on how much damage I had going into the ending of the game, which ended up being an unfounded fear because, as you can see, I cleared that by quite a bit, so I ended up saving a bit. But if you can keep your saves to 2 or less, you get 5 points for the saves category. This is also one of the categories that I mentioned that is easier in the PC version. This category is completely free in the PC version. It does not care how many times you saved, you will always get the 5 points for this category. I'm not 100% sure on why they did it like that. The best theory I've seen is due to stability issues latent in the original PC release of the Silent Hill 2 or Silent Hill 2 game for PC. It was pretty crash prone, and I guess they just took out the saving requirement just to make it easy on people who actually wanted to go for a 10-star ranking, which actually also allows you to abuse the heck out of PC-specific mechanics, specifically the quick save button in the PC version, which fully restores James's stamina and allows him to sprint indefinitely if you just slam on the quick save key. Pretty funny like that, but yeah, that is one distinction between the PC version, and it's one of 2 things that makes getting 10 stars in the PC version easier. Next up is your total time. You are allotted 3 hours to clear the game, and if you can beat it in under 3 hours, you get 10 stars, 10 points, a single large star. And this is an extremely generous time limit. If you watch the main Let's Play series that I did for this game, I played the game in a pretty slow and inefficient manner, and I still only failed this category by like 30 minutes or so. As you can see, in the 10-star ranking proper, where I was trying to do everything as quickly and efficiently as possible, I smashed this with 56 minutes to spare, even though this is a longer and much slower-paced game than the first game. Even if I were to scale the numbers to be relative to what the time requirements were in the first game, which was an hour and 30 minutes, I still finished off with more than double the time to spare. So once you've gotten enough clears of this game and you know where everything is, you know all the puzzle solutions, what the most efficient route to take through every area is, this is basically a no-brainer category. You don't have to worry about this at all. The only thing I'd say is that if you have been struggling to get through the game quickly, I would say a run is not worth pursuing if you get to the save before Eddie and you have like 2 hours and 50 minutes on the clock. Probably not going to have enough time to finish the game and still come under, even if you're going for the dog ending. But if you're able to get the other categories, I can't imagine this being an issue at all. Walking distance and running distance does not matter, though obviously your running distance is probably going to be a lot more since we're trying to go as fast as possible. The next category, and this is the most frequently misreported category for what you need to actually clear it, is items. For this, the commonly reported figure that is given is that you need 150 regular items plus all the special items. Now, if you're playing the PC version or Restless Dreams, what have you, which has the blue gem, this will get you the maximum score. Your item count will be 150 plus 8. But if you're playing on the original Black Label PS2 version like I am, 150 plus 7 does not get you the full score. Why is that? Because this is scored differently than how it was compared to Silent Hill 1. In Silent Hill 1, you had a score based on your regular items collected and a separate score based on special items collected, and you needed to collect 5 special items to max out that score. In Silent Hill 2, your special items and your standard items are ranked together. The way it works is that for every 20 regular items you get 1 point, and for every special item you get a point. And these can add together to total to 15 points maximum. So for the PS2 version that I'm playing, in order to beat this score, I would need to have 160 and 7 special items. 150 and 7 won't cut it, and of course it is like you exact figures. You need exactly 20 items to get 1 point. No rounding up or rounding down there. So yeah, this is often misreported, but the amount that you want to shoot for is 160 plus 7 or 140 plus 8. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It's not a huge deal. As long as you collect everything along the way, you will more than likely comfortably meet this. I went out of my way a little bit for some items, but there were plenty of things I could skip. I got 30 more items than was necessary. So it's not a terribly difficult category, but it is a time-draining one, so be mindful of this, and just be sure to pick up all of the big item caches, like the safe in Blue Creek Apartment and the trick-or-treat reward. And if any time you come across 3 items all together, there are a bunch of item caches like that on the way to the Historical Society after the hospital, just be sure to pick that up. Be sure to pick up all the special items on the way, obviously, and most of them are literally on the way, so there's no reason not to. The only one that isn't is the Book of Crimson Ceremony, which I could have skipped, but I just got it just to be certain. And that is one benefit of the dog ending, is that if you are aggressively routing your item pickup so that you have exactly what you need, the dog ending allows you to pick up an extra special item, whereas the UFO ending would end the game before you had the chance to get the Book of Crimson Ceremony. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going for a clear that is as fast as possible and you heavily route out your item pickups. But otherwise, just pick up everything on the way, get all the special items, and you'll be fine on this category. Next up is defeating enemies by shooting and defeating enemies by fighting. In the first game, this was infamous for how oblique it was, and it took people forever to figure out what the heck you were supposed to do, because it was tied to a weighted mathematical formula that determined the amount of points you got with your kills by shooting versus your kills by fighting. In Silent Hill 2, these are flat and rigid values. You need to shoot 75 enemies to death, and then you need to stomp or otherwise kill 75 enemies with melee attacks. So this is much, much more straightforward. The big tricky part about this is that it is a lot slower to kill enemies in this game. The philosophy for maxing these numbers out for a full 10-star ranking is pretty similar to Silent Hill 1, where you want to focus on your fighting kills first before transitioning into racking up your shooting kills, though the exact reason why you want to do that is kind of reversed. In Silent Hill 1, it was because fighting kills were a lot slower, so you may as well get them out of the way early on, and then once you have the rifle, which kills enemies very quickly by shooting, then you can focus all your effort on shooting kills. In Silent Hill 2, enemies are ridiculously bullet spongy. The most basic enemies, like the lying figures, can take upwards of 13 to 18 shots to kill if you keep a steady rhythm of firing with the handgun. You can't reasonably kill them quickly until you get the shotgun, so you should just focus on stomping them to death after knocking them over with the handgun. You may notice that several points throughout the game I kind of just bumble and slowly go along. That's because I was actively tallying the amount of kills I got in each category, and I just kind of did that as I ran through hallways and as loading screens happened. But if you want to do this category without actively counting how many kills you got, my personal recommendation would be to hunt down and kill everything that you can come across until you clear the Nightmare Hospital. So clear every room in Woodside Apartment, clear out every enemy in Blue Creek. Don't go out of your way to kill a bunch of stuff when walking to the bowling alley, but do kill everything along the way. And then make sure to kill all the nurses by stomping in the hospital and the Nightmare Hospital. This will get you to a little bit over 75 kills just doing that. And then from that point on, just shoot everything to death with the shotgun. You'll meet this no problem. That is my personal method if you don't want to waste time counting. For each category, you get 15 stars or 15 points for shooting kills and 15 points for fighting kills. These come together to 30 points, 3 big stars. So this is one of the biggest categories for your 10-star ranking, and it is by far the biggest time sink, especially in the stretch from the hospital to the Historical Society, where you're running through the streets, enemies are kind of located erratically, and there's just very long stretch without any loading screens to pause the timer. One thing that I missed about the timer is that in this game, cutscenes and the pause button, though not the item menu, actually do freeze the timer, giving you a little bit more breathing room in that regard. So if you're tallying, be sure to pause the game, unlike I did, to mark down your tallies, and then continue on your way. Next up is by far the weirdest and silliest category in the game. You are ranked on your time on the boat stage. You need to get this under 1 minute and 20 seconds in order to get the full score for it, which is 5 points. Now, in Silent Hill 2 on the PS2 and any console version, you have a very cumbersome control scheme for the boat on hard mode, where you have to rotate the 2 analog sticks simultaneously. The left stick has to go counterclockwise, while the right stick has to go clockwise, and you have to do this simultaneously in a good rhythm to get a good speed going. And if you want to make hard turns, you have to turn the sticks either both counterclockwise or both clockwise. On the PC version, this category is essentially free because across all difficulties, the boat controls are the same, likely because they couldn't figure out how to adapt that kind of control scheme to the keyboard, or perhaps they just couldn't figure out how to program separate control schemes between the keyboard and a gamepad. Whatever the case, this is much easier on the PC version, and if you played the game enough to do a 10-star ranking, you know that the dock is to your immediate right, so you just make a hard turn and start going forward once the light comes into view, and you go at the max speed for the boat, so it's very easy. You'll likely make it to the dock within like 50 seconds or so. On the PS2 version and any console version, really all you have to do here is just make a personal save right before the boat section and just practice it. Get a timer, either an actual stopwatch or just use your phone, and make sure that from when the cutscene starts, start your timer. Just make sure you can get to the dock on the other side of the lake in about 1 minute and 15 seconds. That's probably a pretty good amount of breathing room to make sure you clear this boat stage in time. And otherwise, it's very straightforward. Once you figure out how it controls, it's not too hard to replicate a good time for this. Once again, you get 5 points for clearing this with the requisite time. Silly thing to be ranked on, but it is something you're ranked on, so make sure you're practiced on it. And the final category that you're ranked on, it's not your max boat speed, but it is your total damage. This is by far the most intimidating category for people first looking into getting a 10-star ranking. Likely you're accustomed to taking pretty big damage at certain sections of the game, particularly the last few bosses. And it's not uncommon for even people who've played this game a ton to finish a hard mode playthrough with their damage well over 1,000. To get 5 stars in this category, you need to take under 500 damage, which is pretty demanding, but it's not as bad as you think, because since we're able to skip the 2 final bosses, that being Twin Pyramid Head and Maria, we are able to shave off a ton of damage there, which means that the only real big places that we have to worry about taking a ton of damage are Brookhaven Hospital, where the nurses are extremely aggressive and tend to swarm you as soon as you enter rooms, and the fight against Eddie, which I've developed a decently reliable strategy for that on PS2 involving the Great Knife, and of course, Phase 1 is a freebie with the steel pipe method. Limiting your damage here is pretty critical, and I think a good rule of thumb is to try and avoid, if you can make it to the part where Pyramid Head knocks you off the roof without healing once, you're in a pretty good position, and I think from that point on, you don't have to worry too much about the damage you take, and then just limit the amount of times you have to heal yourself in the Eddie fight. If you can get through that fight only having to heal yourself to full once, you're pretty good there, and as you can see, I cleared damage by a lot. I had 139 points to spare, so there was no threat, and honestly, I really wish I had just healed myself after the first time I cleared the Eddie fight when I beat it, because I got grabbed by an abstract daddy and that killed me, and I had more than enough damage to heal it off. I do want to use this opportunity to clear up one misconception about damage in this game. It's commonly stated that enemies deal more damage in hard mode, and while they may deal slightly more damage, what really seems to happen in hard mode is that James's health actually gets lowered, which creates a similar effect to the enemies dealing more damage in a casual playthrough, but in a ranking playthrough, it is a pretty big world of difference, because I healed myself to full at least 4 times. I didn't review the footage to see if it was 4 times or 5 times, but definitely just, I know that based on the amount of times I healed myself, if James had 100 hit points, I definitely would have been over 400, but I'm under it. So that tells me that James's max health in hard mode is closer to about 70 or 75 points of HP. So you actually have a bit of buffer there. It would be like around 7 or 8 full heals where you'd have to really concern yourself about if you're going to fail the damage category. I mentioned previously Pyramid Head knocking you off the roof. One thing you can breathe a sigh of relief about, that does not count as damage to you for the purpose of this category, so you don't have to worry about factoring that in. And that's why it's a good spot to do your first bit of healing, since you're going to be knocked down into the critical health status anyway. So yeah, just keep this under 500 points. Be mindful of how many times you've healed yourself. If you make it to Eddie and you've only had to heal yourself to full 3 times, you are more than good for this, and you just need to do decent on the Eddie fight in order to beat this category. And that's everything. Once those all combine, having your damage under 500 will give you the last 5 points you need to get a 5-star ranking. Just one miscellaneous thing that I'd like to bring up, another difference between the PC version, though this is far more negligible and doesn't really affect anything. The fight against the lying figure, the first one after you get the wooden plank in the PC version, for some reason that does not count as a fighting kill, so if you are tallying your fighting kills in the PC version, make sure to not count that one because it does not count in the PC version. Other than that, any boss fight that does not result in death by James's hand does not count as a kill for him, so the Pyramid Head fights are the only ones that are really worth mentioning here. In both instances, either Pyramid Head runs away or the Pyramid Heads kill themselves, so those don't count, but you're probably not going to be fighting Pyramid Heads anyway, so that's not a super big concern. And lastly, Eddie does not count as a kill, probably because he's not a monster and this is tracking your monster kills. At least I think that's the logic at play. But that's everything there is to say about getting a 10-star ranking. Hope this video is helpful if you're looking to pursue it yourself and get that cool green hyper spray that just sprays out instant death. Alright, hope you enjoyed the video.